Everyone, and welcome back to another video on the Ravean kind of world building kind of playlist here. Right now, we're actually going to go into some of the individual regions within the Mistkeep. We just did our Mistkeep video kind of as the broad strokes of the region, but for now, we'll talk about kind of the individual regions within. This time, we're going to talk about the Boiling Shore. In general, just to highlight, the Mistkeep Mining Guild is part of, majority of it is within the Arctic Circle for this world. Is, very cold, tundra type environment. It is dominated by a number of regions. They have a few different geographical landscapes, though, and so it is very different across region to region, though cold is kind of a predominant factor throughout all of it. And each region has its own challenges to living there that comes up kind of across this way. So, talking about the Boiling Shore, the thing that I should highlight is it is cold, and in the winter it is very cold, which doesn't sound like it would make much sense for a region called the Boiling Shore. It's actually, if I go back over, this kind of coastline, the easternmost coastline of this region here is pretty much the majority of the Boiling Shore itself. The Boiling Shore is defined by both the cool Sapphire Sea's influence and the warmth of a highly geoactive shoreline made up of geysers and boiling mud pools. That's where it kind of gets its name. So the Boiling Shore is highly geoactive, heated by subsurface magma flows that end up heating seawater that comes in contact with the land versus high tide and low tide, sending geysers every now and then on a fairly regular daily basis, and boiling mud pools as whatever kind of soil or earth there is present that gets saturated ends up kind of boiling with the water within it. Makes for a very kind of interesting and potentially hazardous area, as seawater that slowly filters in to these kind of magma tunnels ends up being a geyser, and so you're walking along the shoreline and all of a sudden you blow up, right? That's a very, very dangerous place to be. So it contacts the land, and the highland mud pools and hot springs serve as a source of warmth for creatures and people within the region. So there is a chance. It's kind of one of the first places that if you were going to try to settle this region, this is probably your best chance, is to try to live somewhat near these hot springs. Makes for very nice kind of a ambient warm areas, almost like a warmth oasis when it comes to the cold regions that are otherwise across the Mistkeep. And it does hold a great many different aquatic species that would normally struggle to survive in cooler waters of the northern Sapphire Sea. But because it's so geoactive, this kind of cut right here is warmer and can hold a variety of different life that, as the seasonal shifts come about, yes, it gets colder, but not nearly as cold as this northern cut above the Vermont Empire. So it ends up being warm enough to support different varieties of life that are built to adjust and vary across seasonal temperatures. This region borders the split in the Sapphire Seas that divides the Mistkeep Mining Guild and the Libet Empire. As a result, the region's people are highly wary of nautical travel from the Libet Empire coming through this region, and they keep a very close watch on the sea in an effort to protect themselves from their one-time enemy. So here's the really important thing to recognize. People within this region, it's a very small region. It's kind of ends right here at this mountain range and ends up kind of dipping down and mostly hugs the coast, and then very rapidly turns into the slush harbor that otherwise goes all the way up this coastline. So it varies heavily across as it gets further south and then goes back north. Pretty much at the tip of this is where it's probably going to be its warmest, and then it dips into the slush harbor very quickly. So right around the capital is a highly volatile place in terms of temperature swings, right? So we end up seeing a lot of the geoactive influence that does occur based off of the warmth from underground systems and everything else that way taking place within this region and being able to warm parts of the region and some of the other regions here, but primarily along this shoreline where the geysers and these mud pools and hot springs are. But it ends up varying because the minute that you get further inland, by too much, you start to get colder and colder temperatures with a different kind of ecosystem, especially the further you get towards the mountains. It's geoactive across the entirety of the Mistkeep, but not necessarily throughout the various surface levels. It's geoactive throughout the Mistkeep underground, and the cold kind of predominates the majority of it, except for this region here. So the Boiling Shore is kind of an exception because those things are closer to the surface, and that's what kind of is the driving force for that warmth. So next time we'll talk about the Thaw Timber region, discuss kind of the Boiling Shore's influence on it as well, and discuss everything else along those lines for the kinds of people that live there. So otherwise, thank you all that are watching, and of course, be good to one another. And I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.